We are now officially at the halfway point of the season as the Ducks fall to the Carolina Hurricanes. And I've got a guest with me on this supersized edition of Locked On Anaheim Ducks.
You're Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Caniacs. I'm your host, Jared Ellis, and you're listening to Locked On Hurricanes on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today I am joined by Jason Hernandez from Locked On Ducks as we break down this game against the Ducks. But before we get into that, I do want to remind you that today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Now it is time to talk about this.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I fell asleep there. Like the Ducks did the majority of this game.
Like I did during the third period.
That the Ducks were just.
Yeah, this was.
I can't believe you slept through the third period. I mean, that was fun for you.
Yeah. Well, you work a week straight.
The second period was the most interesting by far, and it wasn't close. I mean, you had all the goals. You had a little bit of the rough stuff. It was fun for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's go with that.
Yeah. Yeah, the Hurricanes have now extended their point streak to 7 games. And like you said, the second period is kind of when all the action kind of took place. In the first period, yeah, the Hurricanes did score 2 goals within 15 seconds of each other. That was obviously really cool. They score one. I get up to fill my cup, and as I'm in the kitchen filling it up with water, they score again. I'm like, oh, what the heck just happened? Are they showing a replay? What's going on? But no, they're up 2-0, which is great. But like you said, in the second period is when the Ducks really came back. I said at the top of the episode, the score was the same as the last time these two teams met back in October. It was 6-3 back then. But this time it was flipped around. And in that previous game, the Ducks had went up 3-0 early. The Hurricanes fought back, and made it, 6-3. Kind of happened in this game, sort of. The Ducks, did come back in that second period, tied it up at 3. Obviously, the Hurricanes did, obviously extend their lead, to 6 or. I guess 3 goals, but making it 6 total goals.
It was 3.
So I mean that was kind of cool. Same scores last time, but second period we did see Pyotr Kochetkov go down with an upper body injury after a collision with one of the Ducks players. Antti came in. He did his job good. He didn't have a whole lot of work to do. I believe he only faced like 3.
I have to
shots.
point out,
it wasn't a lot.
I got to point out, Antti Raanta got the win with 3 saves officially.
Yeah.
On the NHL sites. What the heck? I mean, that's not a whole lot of work. I mean, imagine saying, yeah, I got a 3-save win. If you got a 3-save win, something happened, obviously.
Yeah, and he played a period and a half.
And what happened was, we can't say his nickname, but yeah, he played a period and a half. But that was the Ducks falling asleep again. First period, the Ducks were just catatonic. You know how many shots they had in the first period, the Ducks? I can count it in one finger. 1. 1 shot. And that 1 shot came from Sam Carrick about 15 minutes into the first. That was it. Third period, the Ducks didn't do much better. Carolina just really took over that third period and stifled the Ducks pretty much the entire time. Anytime the Ducks got into the offensive zone, the Canes were right there to take it out. Anytime the Ducks had any kind of movement going into the zone, and this went for every Ducks defenseman. Cam Fowler, who did not look great in this game. Fowler has not looked good the past few games. Can I tell you about all the injuries the Ducks have right now? Because there's a lot of them. Leo Carlson is still out with a sprained knee. He's still going to be out for a couple of weeks. Pavel Mintyukov, he is out for a couple of months because of a separated shoulder. Trevor Zegras is out about 2 months because of a broken ankle. They just got rid of Jamie Drysdale in that blockbuster-ish trade.
Mm-hmm.
So they're missing quite a few players. The Ducks are.
Yeah. Injuries piling up. It sucks for a team. It does. Whether it's a team, at the top of the standings, whether it's a team vying for a number 1 overall pick, like injuries suck. They do, and it just makes things go from bad to worse.
And Isaac Lundestrom just came back, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So hallelujah for that. I feel like John Gibson got hurt in this game, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
He left at the end of the second period, did not come back in the third period. So Lukáš Dostal came into the game in relief, gave up 1 goal. That was it. Yeah, imagine giving up 1 goal and that's it. Now, Dostal was fine. Just Carolina played their butts off.
Yeah, I think, one thing for me, heading into this game was, Carolina avoiding rust from having, such a long break in between games, because we've seen in the past, where they've had an extended break and it comes back to bite them in the butt. We've seen that before. That was my main concern heading into this game. And for the most part, aside from the second period, they were able to avoid that. The Hurricanes special teams has been absolutely booming as of late, and they extended it to 8 straight games with a power play goal with Steph Naison's power play goal tonight. So
former Duck Stephen Nason.
Yep. He has been great for the team over his tenure here as well. So, and he's having another great season this year as well. So that was great for them. I said earlier, I want to bring this up for you, Jason. They are, as a whole, where were they? They were second in the league in power play and then 9th in the league in penalty killing. But
PK.
Since December 1st, during that time frame, they are this was pre-game tonight, first in the league in power play at 40.4%, scoring on 13 and 25 attempts. Penalty killing was also first in the league at 92.7%. Aho and Sveshnikov alone had 18 points on the power play in the last 7 games. This was all prior to tonight's game, so of course these numbers are going to be different now. So their special teams had really been booming, so it's great to see that is continuing. And then of course, now having continued their point streak to 7 games. So they're really rolling right now. And then Seth Jarvis also making his case to be voted in as an all-star. He's had a fantastic season. He had another great night tonight. 2 fantastic assists, adding a goal on top of it during the third. He's had 31 points in 41 games as well. So,
I'll give credit.
It was a good night.
I'll give credit I will give credit where credit is due. Seth Jarvis, I think, really exposed the Ducks a lot during this game. He was one of those guys that kind of took over early on in the game and exposed the Ducks in their kind of weird quasi. It was a weird man-to-man, like not like I said, quasi man-to-man. Carolina is just a faster team right now, and the Ducks, with the young defensemen being out or gone now, they're left with guys like Cam Fowler. Urho Vakanainen is in your top pairing. That's how bad the Ducks are right now. Vakanainen's the top pairing defenseman. Radko Gudas, Labushkin did not have a good game. Jackson Lacombe had a pretty pretty miserable game. And an especially bad third period, which I want to talk about just briefly. Jackson Lacombe has made some rookie mistakes throughout the season. He had a very bad rookie mistake in this one, which led to the Canes. I think it was the 6th goal, where Lacombe had the puck in his own, like behind Lukáš Dostal, and passed it to absolutely no one. I'm like, what are you doing? He passed it to no one, right to Martinook, who got it over to Brent Burns, and just exposed the Ducks again. So good on Seth Jarvis. Really,
yeah, he's having
kind of showing all the flaws in the Ducks defense right now.
Ducks are going to have some fun tape to watch tomorrow. That's for sure. But, we're talking a lot about Seth Jarvis, but, there were other standout players in this game, for good and for bad, of course. And we will dive into those guys right after this quick break. Now, it's almost the halfway point of the season, Canes and Ducks fans. So regardless of where we are in the current standings, I want to remind you that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our #1 choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey. We've talked a lot about Seth Jarvis, talked about Sebastian Aho, Andrei Svechnikov. So, you can, put some money on those guys. And of course, you're not just limited to the NHL.
Throw one Duck in there. How about Frank Vetrano? Throw him in there.
Yeah, Frank Vetrano, John Gibson, whoever, when Trevor Zegras comes back, you got a whole bunch of guys there. The possibilities are endless. And you aren't just limited to the NHL. You can also play daily fantasy, NFL, NBA, MLB, or college football, all on Sleeper. All you have to do is pick whether studs like Andrei Svechnikov or Trevor Zegras will record one or more or less their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minuses, and more in any given game. To win 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Canes and Ducks fans. You can win 100 times your money by playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Logix Banking. On this show, you get a lot of in-depth analysis and hot takes, right? Well, let me give you my hottest take of the day. The best lineup in the LA and surrounding areas right now is the lineup of auto loans at Logix. They start off at the top with my favorites, the proven and dependable new and used vehicle loans. You can count on these guys to give you low rates and save you big time bucks. Next up, they've got an exciting new rookie sensation in their electric vehicle loans with super low rates and flexible payment terms. Rounding out the lineup, they've got their auto refinancing loans and lease buyout loans. With these guys, you could lower your monthly payments and get on the road to owning your car faster. Look, I know it's a hot take, but seriously, no one can beat the lineup at Logix. Visit your local Logix branch right here in the LA and surrounding areas and let one of their amazing team members help you. Or just apply online in minutes at logixbanking.com/car. That's LOGIX banking.com/car.
Now, getting into the standout players, we talked a lot about Seth Jarvis already, so we're not going to spend too much time on him again. He had a really good night. 2 fantastic assists, a goal, 3-point night for him. I also believe he was the official first star of the game. Yes, he was. And actually, the second star is another guy that I do want to bring up, and that is Jordan Martinook. He was playing in his 600th NHL game tonight, 353rd with the Hurricanes, following him coming over from Arizona. years ago. He had a goal and an assist tonight, so 2-point night for him.
He made the right choice going to Carolina.
Yeah, and it was a weird time to get traded. Like the playoffs were going on, but obviously Carolina and Arizona both eliminated. So it was a weird time to get traded too. But of course he did, and he is still here. He wears a letter on the front of his jersey for a reason. So yeah, and absolutely fantastic guy to talk to. Should you ever get a chance? Yeah, absolutely fantastic ambassador for the organization, which is great. A great thing to have. But he had a really good night as well. Really no complaints there from him. The Hurricanes, you look at just the breakdown of who all netted points tonight.
Too many. There was too many for Carolina.
Obviously, you had 6 different goal scorers, but you had 1, 2,
Stephen Nason.
3,
I thought
4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, they had a lot of guys get points.
8, 9,
while you're
10,
counting,
11, 12.
I'll say one on your behalf.
13 different guys net points tonight.
Yep. And on your behalf, I'll say Stephen Nason, I thought had a particularly solid game, not as good as other guys you mentioned, but Nason was pretty solid, and he's always been a good depth piece in that system. Obviously, having that time with the Chicago Wolves and having that deep playoff run did help him in the long run. And I think now seeing him in the big leagues, he's gotten a lot more aware of his teammates and just having better puck awareness. And you could see his hockey IQ is starting to show a little bit more now that he's playing in the NHL. So I'll just give credit where credit's due for Stephen Nason.
Yeah, he's been a fantastic addition for the Hurricanes. They're on their bottom 6. He actually played on the second line tonight with Seth Jarvis moving down to the third line. So it wasn't a bad thing there of him moving down there. That was simply Jesper Fast coming back into the lineup and then moving some guys around because Fast, him having been out for some time with an upper body injury, kind of wanted to limit his ice time some. So that was just kind of a thing there. And it is fun to see, him play alongside Jordan Staal and Jordan Martinook. You saw during the second period, I forget who it was, shoved Jarvis down to the ice, and both Martinook and Staal, came up and definitely roughed up the Ducks player again. I forget who it was.
I want to say it was either Robert Haig or no, it might have been Haig on that one.
Yeah, I forget who it was. But I'll give him a mention, just because he was the official third star, and that was Brendan Lemieux. He had.
We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about the little fisticuff.
There was Jack Drury getting a nasty hit into the boards, and then Lemieux kind of coming back up, sticking up for his teammate, which is fine, expected. That he's filling the role that the team brought him in for. It's fine. And kind of he's not a guy you expect to rack up a ton of points and whatnot. That's just kind of not his role here. He's a pest. That's his role. But I did want to also mention Jack Drury. I thought he had a good game tonight. I did like how he kind of took that nasty hit, and then on the ensuing power play, coming from said penalty against Anaheim, he scores a power play goal. I did like that.
Yeah, because the Ducks are so disciplined, Jared. Did you know that the Ducks are one of the most penalized teams in the National Hockey League, and they've given up almost the most power play goals this season? Gee willikers. Imagine the Ducks giving up another power play goal.
And that was something, I said earlier, when I was talking about the Hurricane special teams booming, the way it has. The Hurricanes going 1 for 3 on the power play tonight.
Bad Ducks. Bad.
And then, the Ducks did get one power play attempt. They went 1 for 5 on theirs. So, yeah, definitely a kind of an off night for the Hurricanes in that regard, in taking so many penalties. But I know in that play we were talking about, there were several handed out there. So that's kind of where most of them came from.
And I will go into my standout player, if I may, because you kind of just, gave me the perfect segue for that, is on that power play goal. Frank Vetrano became just the third Duck in franchise history to have back-to-back 20-goal seasons. The other two being obvious, Korea Solani. But Frank Vetrano, who was just named to the NHL All-Star team, had a pretty ridiculous game in general. He was one of only maybe 2 or 3 Ducks that I thought played a good game, Vetrano being one of them. Troy Terry being another one that had a good half game. I'll be real here. Troy Terry was paramount in getting breakaways in the second period. He was very effective in driving play on this game for, again, half a game. And I think Frank Vetrano, much deserving of that all-star selection, and getting that 20th goal, that meant a lot to him because he was gunning for that. But I didn't expect him to get it this early in the season. He's on pace for 40 goals, by the way. Imagine the Ducks having a 40-goal score. I know you're used to it. You're used to having all these great goal scorers, Jared.
Not really.
I know you have more wins in the past 5 years. I mean, I'm going to stop before I curse a little bit. But Vetrano, I think, was my standout player for this game. He's got that incredible shot. When you leave him somewhat open on the power play, that is probably the only time where the Ducks actually do score, him and Mason McTavish. I still can't believe they're not on the same line, Strome, McTavish, Vetrano. That was the best line the Ducks had going for most of the season. Because of injuries, they've been separated. McTavish, I don't know if you saw in the third, McTavish had a wide open net and just completely sailed it over the net.
That'd be me if I was a hockey player.
Wide open. I'm like, no, Mason, what are you doing? I mean, it wouldn't have mattered anyway. Carolina still would have won. But it's just part of the frustration of the Ducks this season. When they have open shots, they're not putting them away. When they're on the PK, they're allowing teams in way too easily. I'm shocked it wasn't 7-3 or 8-3 or 9-3, but the Ducks were 6-3 their stomach.
Yeah, I think ultimately, that kind of comes down to the second period, and just kind of how the Ducks battled back in that one. Brendan Moore said during the mid-period interview thing that the Hurricanes came out flat in the second. So I kind of feel that kind of chalks up there. Had they been able to carry that momentum coming out of the first into the second, that they end up getting back in that third period, then I do think it could have gotten a bit uglier for Anaheim. But Anaheim, Carolina gave Anaheim a shot. They did.
They did. It was a combination. It was a combination of Carolina coming out flat in that second period. Anaheim came out like their what's were on fire.
Like their feathers were on fire. Their tail feathers.
Oh, I should have said that, and I can't believe I didn't. Come on,
tail
JD.
Feathers were on fire.
Come on, JD. I should know better than that.
But yeah, that was kind of where the Hurricanes worried me. That was what I was worried about heading into this game. That did very much feel like, oh, we're coming out of a 4-day break, and here it is. That's kind of what that felt like. But you've talked a lot about just the Ducks as a whole this season, and I do briefly want to touch on where the Hurricanes and the Ducks are at this mid-season point. Both are now 41 games in to their season. So we will dive into where the Hurricanes and Ducks are at the mid-season point right after this quick break, folks. Now, I know we come to talk about sports as an escape from the crazy reality of life, but can we just talk for a minute about preparing for real life? According to the FDA, the pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. This is scary. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than if, my friends and loved ones or just someone I cared about got sick while a supply chain issue kept them from the life-saving medication they needed. Thankfully, we'll be okay because of Jase Medical. The Jase case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinuses infections, skin infections, among others. This stuff could happen to any of us. Visit jasemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jasemedical.com and use offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. Now, mid-season point for the Canes and Ducks. The Hurricanes, it's kind of been a tale of two halves with this first half of the season. The first kind of half of the season was really rough. They, were not on the same page at all. They could not put anything together. You had Brendan Moore, Stahl, among others, calling guys out in the media saying, that folks weren't buying in, that they need to look in the mirror. Stars weren't stepping up. And it was rough. It was bad. Definitely some locker room issues that were going on. But, kind of ever since, they had that players only meeting, obviously there's still kind of a rough few games following that. But they have since been able to get on the same page. They're out there looking like the team we expected them to look like, and looking like a team that was the preseason favorite to win the Stanley Cup. They're looking like that team, which is good, obviously. Now, because of the season they've had, and they had kind of flashes in the pan through that rough patch of the season, I am a little bit hesitant to say, oh, heck yeah, I'm all in, I'm pushing all my chips to the middle. I'm a little hesitant on that, and especially, following, this game against the Ducks. Is Pyotr Kochetkov going to be out long term, or some sort of extended period of time, more than a game, I'm a little hesitant to go all in there, just because, the one thing that has consistently been an issue for the Hurricanes this season, I mean, aside, from this last little stretch they've been on, has been their goaltending. It has not been up to snuff this year. You've consistently been able to point to that as a weak point for this team. Something they need to try to improve at the deadline. Frankly, it's something I still think they need to try to improve at on the deadline, because now you don't know when Pyotr's going to be back or how long he's going to be back. Freddie Anderson, I know he's able to skate again, but he's still out with his blood clotting issue, And then
Jared,
Ranta.
The Ducks have a goalie available, possibly. Just saying.
I know. I've been thinking about it. It's.
I mean, he's now
going to be interesting. But... Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the thing. Like you said, John Gibson, he's hurt now.
I'm going to put you on the spot here, because something that I like to do is mid-season report cards, because, this is a supersized show anyway. It doesn't matter now, but If you were to grade, let's grade the defense. What grade would you give the defense in the first half of the season?
I'll say a B plus. Solid B, B plus. I think I'll lean more towards a B, simply because there obviously it is very much a game of what have you done for me lately. And lately they have been really good. And they are performing to the level we know they are capable of. And they have found a rotation that works. They aren't trying to shoehorn Tony D'Angelo into the lineup alongside Dmitry Orlov. That just was not working. That pairing was absolutely abysmal. And if they kept trying to roll that grade would definitely be a lot lower. But they've stopped that. Orlov and Chatfield are developing some nice chemistry. But you definitely still kind of had the stink of the first half of the season. That's why I'll go solid B. And because obviously Shea and Pesci, that's always going to be a good pairing. Jacob Slavin always in the mix, to be an all-star, one of the best defensemen in the league. Brent Burns, he had a slow start to the season, but he has since picked it up. And is definitely playing like we know him to play. So that's why I'll go with a B for the defenseman. They've put it together over the past month and a half or so.
All right. I think I'm going to answer this for you, but
go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's one that I want to answer for you. I'm going to say your special teams get an A and just leave it at that, because they've been amazing for most of the season. Special teams right now, both top 10 in the league. Not many teams can say that. And especially, good Lord, the power play for Carolina is so good. It's so good.
I would definitely say A minus when it comes to special teams, because
A minus, again, come on.
Just kind of looking at the season as a whole, you kind of look back to that. Like I said, it's been a tale of two halves for them. It was like a dry Thanksgiving turkey. You just couldn't get anything going with it for a bit there. It was just horrible.
You're comparing it to a dry Thanksgiving turkey?
Oh, or we are well, we're past Christmas now.
If yours is a dry Thanksgiving turkey, what the heck are the Ducks?
Y'all are in Christmas vacation when they cut the turkey open. That's the Ducks.
And except it is a duck. No, the Ducks special teams reminds me, if we're going to go Christmas movies here, not Christmas Vacation when they cut open the turkey and nothing comes out. The Ducks season reminds me of A Christmas Story, when the Bumpus dogs eat the turkey and they're forced to go to the bowling Chinese restaurants, and they have the duck there. And they say, like, oh, it's smiling at me. And he chops off the duck's head. Yeah. That's what their special teams are playing like.
They're playing like as a whole, to be honest.
They're playing like a bunch of ducks with their head chopped off. Look, special teams have been more than abysmal for the Ducks this season. If I could think of a word that's worse than abysmal, I'm sure I'll come up with it momentarily.
Oh, I can think of one. We just can't say it.
I mean, I could think of one too that we can't say either. But we're not
going to have to throw some quacking in over it. But
yeah,
it's been a rough year for the Ducks. Hopefully they'll be able to turn it around sooner rather than later. And like you said earlier, injuries have just absolutely bitten them in the butt. Whether or not it make a massive difference, I don't know, but it never helps.
Some difference. It'll make some difference.
Yeah.
Because of the types of players that have been out, and it's been top talent players that have been out, I think it would make a difference in that maybe they wouldn't give up as many. But I will say special teams is a big solid F. And actually, discipline is at an F-. The Ducks are one of the most, if not the most undisciplined team in the league this season. They consistently take stupid penalty after stupid penalty to the point, and I'll use this word, it's disgraceful. It is disgraceful how the special teams have been going, especially on the penalty kill. You know that the Ducks are leading the league in too many men penalties. They're almost at 10. When there are several teams.
How do you take that many?
I know.
Like the Hurricanes hardly ever get called for that. They're like maybe like 2 or 3 a season.
Because they know how to count. They know how to freaking count to 5, Jared. They go 1, 2. They can't physically count to 5. It's so ridiculous.
Oh wow! I think the Ducks need to hire a kindergarten teacher for their coaching staff.
It feels like it a lot because if a team gets
one of my friends is a math teacher, do you want me to give you their contact info?
Please. Because I know you'll agree with me on this. Like holding penalties, tripping penalties, like a lot of those penalties, like most are obvious, but some of them are subjective. But the one penalty that is not subjective is too many men. Like you can easily see 6, at least once this season, 7 men on the ice. Are you effing joking? Yes, the Ducks had one time this season, legit 7 men on the ice. Of course they freaking get called for that.
It still wouldn't make a difference.
It's the most undisciplined, and the penalty that always comes back to bite you in the butt. And looking at just these special team stats this season, because it's really bad, Jared. Do you want to know how many power play goals the Ducks have given up this season? I want to take a shot at this. We'll go Price is Right style without going over.
They're 41 games in, correct?
41 games in.
You said power play goals. I will go with 26.
Oh, it's higher than that. At least he didn't go over. That?
Yeah,
it's higher than that.
Higher than 26.
Yeah, it is
30.
36.
Oh my!
The Ducks have allowed almost power play goal per game. How bad is that?
I was giving y'all too much credit.
That's really bad.
Yeah, that's
you're
that's
giving
rough.
the Ducks credit, really? Oh, you're so nice. You're so nice.
Hey, I always say, in games, like tonight, at the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily matter the standings per se, because anything can happen on any given night. At the end of the day, despite Anaheim being where they're at in the standings, Carolina being where they're at, these are NHL teams. So anything can happen on any given night. But tonight, the inevitable happened. The Hurricanes were Thanos.
We both knew what was going to happen. We knew.
Well, I like I was telling you, this could be a trap game through and through for the Hurricanes. I remember I believe it was last year, they were playing Arizona and they got shut out 4-0 at home. In a game that they should have won. It should have been the inverse of that. Because we've seen it time and time again the Hurricanes fall to the trap game. Heck, they did it earlier this year to Anaheim, when the score was inverted.
That didn't feel like a trap game because it was
it was so early,
and B, everybody was healthy.
Yeah, true.
As soon as I saw the news that Z and Mintikov were injured long term, and Jared's for this, but I actually earlier in the day, as soon as the injury news went out, I said the Ducks are going to get smoked, and said why.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I actually texted, they're going to get smoked because so-and-so's injured. He got traded. Now they're injured. I'm like, well, great. They're all hurt. Of course they're going to lose. This wasn't a trap game. We knew. Sorry, Ducks fans.
Yeah. Now for the Hurricanes offense, I would give that probably a solid A. Kind of in the same grade, as I would say A minus. Simply, like everything else, you kind of factor in, the first half of the season, where it wasn't great. C minus for the Ducks.
That's my Ducks grade for offense. A
C minus. Yeah, I would say A minus for the Hurricanes. Probably more A minus.
There was, yeah. So the reason I'm not giving it a D or an F, the Ducks did have that one stretch where they were scoring a lot of goals, and it's mainly on the backs of Frank Vetrano, Mason McTavish, and Ryan Strome. Only because of that line and the relative success they had early in the season when they had that nice little run going of like maybe a 10-game run where the Ducks almost looked unstoppable. That's the only reason why it doesn't get an F or a D. They were actually scoring some goals. Defense, that's a D minus. Penalty killing, big fat F. Discipline, big fat F. And I'll give one more grade just because I always kind of ask this one. The home arena experience this season, I always grade it because I try to go to at least 1 or 2 games before the halfway point of the season, and I did. And I like the in-game entertainment, and of course, I always give an A. This is more my shout out to Lindsay Imber, who's the organist for the Anaheim Ducks. She always plays the DuckTales theme during intermission. So I always just give high marks for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've been to one game so far this year. It was a home game against Buffalo. I went with a friend of mine. They won that game, which is great, obviously. It was back in November. It was kind of when things were rough for the Hurricanes, but they were able to come away with the win. Obviously, getting to see a storm surge in person anytime is great. Never going to complain about that.
Fine.
But I'm interested to see how the remainder of this season goes. For both teams, can it go from bad to worse for the Ducks? Like you said tonight, John Gibson got hurt, and that could be god awful, heading into the next games. And just the way injuries have piled up for Anaheim, is that would hurt any team, whether they're at the top or the bottom of the standings.
JD, we're coming for you. We're coming for you, buddy.
Yeah, I know. You're only a couple spots ahead of them. Look today.
Yeah.
Obviously, San Jose was last, but Anaheim was 29th when I looked at the league standings, and obviously in the division, y'all were right there together. But for the Hurricanes, it'll be really interesting to see how things go. Yeah, offense having heated up, defense. You found, combinations that worked. Like I said earlier, they're not trying to shoehorn D'Angelo into that third pairing where it just was not working. Alongside Orlov, that pairing was
interesting.
That pairing was abysmal, and they've stepped away from it. They kind of only use him in an 11-7 type situation at this point, which is fine. Even when he's out there, it's still not like he makes much of a difference. Even when they were shoehorning him in, Offense again has heated up. Aho and Svech have been absolutely on fire. Had Svech not missed so much time due to injury, I very much think he would be in the All-Star mix if he wasn't already named an official All-Star. Seth Jarvis, of course, he's having a phenomenal season. We've talked about him a lot this episode. He's in the mix for being an all-star. I think, the main issue for them right now is honestly just their goaltending. Who knows how long Kochetkov will be out if he's going to miss time. Ranta, he's looking good now, but I said earlier, Father Time is catching up to him now. He's getting older. Injuries have piled up, and he's already had his stint in the AHL this season. And then, can he maintain a level of play that we know he's capable of? And then Frederik Andersen, he's been out since the beginning of November with a blood clotting issue. Who knows when he'll be back? So goaltending is just the biggest thing for the Hurricanes heading into the second half of the season. I think they still got to get a goalie at the deadline. Especially if Kochetkov's going to continue to miss time, especially if you have no idea when Andersen will be back. So it's gonna be rough for the Hurricanes. As you mentioned earlier, Gibson, he's now injured, so who knows how long he'd be out, if that would be a guy they'd want to go for. It's just that's gonna be the interesting thing for the Hurricanes.
Yeah, I'll give my interesting thing for the Ducks is where are they going to go in the trade deadline, and how many of their assets, can they get like something of value for? Like, I had a list of a bunch of guys that are likely going to get traded at the deadline. One of them being Jakob Silfverberg. Yeah, so my two names, two of them, Silfverberg and Henrique. And I think Henrique is going to get dealt this trading deadline. He could certainly use his veteran presence to help a team down the stretch towards the playoffs. I think he's possibly going to bring back something decent of value. I know the Ducks have this the last few off seasons, and it's going to continue again, where they're going to be sellers at the deadline. So it's a matter of what kind of picks they can get back for guys on expiring contracts. So that's going to be a big kind of just question mark for the Ducks the next few. I think that's a sign, isn't it, Jared, that we should wrap it up?
I will go ahead and hit the outro. So give me now you're a black screen. Okay, there you are. Okay.
I shouldn't be a black screen because I see you fine. Well, let's wrap it up quickly. So I'll start. The fine folks can find me on X at StimpyJD, and the show's X is at LO_Ducks. You could find this podcast on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, ad-free on Amazon. We're also on the YouTubes, so check us out there. You could email me at lockedonanaheimducks@gmail.com. You could yell at me if you want. You could also find me doing the public address for the Coachella Valley Firebirds. Let's get fired up, y'all.
Ooh. Good fun. Obviously, you can find Locked On Hurricanes on social media at LO_Hurricanes. Myself on Twitter at Jared Ellis _96. You find the podcast wherever you get your podcast. Find it over on YouTube. And JD is obviously modeling our extremely comfortable Locked On beanies. I wear mine all the time at work when I have to work in the dairy and frozen departments.
Quick shout out. I wore mine up in Seattle during the Winter Classic, and someone said, "Oh, you're part of Locked On. That's so cool." So
am I Locked On? I love wearing that thing. Mine is in the washing machine at the moment. My dog, he decided he was going to jump up on me outside, and I got some mud on it. So it had to get washed. But in the meantime, folks, make sure, again, you're following us all along on social media, and make sure you're tuning into our respective next episodes. And don't forget, as always, let's go Canes, and always fly in a V formation for the Ducks.